Howdy, y'all. Caleb here, and I did it. I took 18 Kroxigor to a tournament, and it was fun. We have some caveats here with this tournament. I'll get into it here in a minute, but this was just our club's monthly tournament, and showed up, and I took Axton with me. You've seen him on the channel a couple of times. He's my 11-year-old. Definitely into a big fan of Warhammer. He plays Stormcast Eternal. Whooped me many times here at home. And he brought an army with him to this tournament just in case. And sure enough, somebody had to drop, so he was playing the Ringer. But weirdly enough, he ended up getting an ear infection in during his first game. He toughed it out and he played through his first game, but after that, we both had to drop so I could take him home and get him some medicine for his ear. So he was a trooper and played our Ringer for game one, and then we both had to drop. So I only got one game in with my 18 Kroxigor list. I was hoping to get a good 3 games in because I really enjoyed the first game I had. Unfortunately, it just wasn't to be. Sometimes your kids, they make it to where you can't have all the fun that you wanted to have. But that's, they're a joy. um, so he will be at a tournament again. This time we'll make sure he doesn't have an ear infection. Who, why, who would have thought that would pop up in the middle of a game? Anyway, so I got one game in with my 18 Kroxigor list, and it was a fun one. So we'll get into that, talk about this first game we had, and maybe I'll get these out to another tournament sometime soon. So here's the list that I took. It has a Stegodon with... This is in Thunder Lizard, of course. Of course. My leaders are Stegodon with Skink Chief as my general, with Prime Warbeast as my command trait, Fusel of Conflagration as my artifact, Skystreak Bow as the weapon, and Beastmaster as the mount trait. So this combo is a lot of fun. You can really buff up this Stegodon Skink Chief to do a lot of damage. You're just throwing a lot of attacks. Prime Warbeast gets you extra attacks, Beastmaster gets you extra attacks, and his command point will get him extra attacks. So you can really throw out a lot of dice that are all doing 2 damage, or 4 for the horns. And you can do some pretty good melee here. You can also get extra attacks from the Sacred Asterisms. So there are lots of ways to get extra attacks for this thing. If you line it up right, he can do a lot of damage. Otherwise, he's going to sit back and just shoot his Skystreak Bow, which does 3 damage. And so that's always fun. I also have an Engine of the Gods with the Prayer Curse and a Slan Starmaster with spell Stellar Tempest. Stellar Tempest is great for busting up some hordes, and the Prayer Curse lets you do hits of 6 do a mortal wound. So good for just all around, usability. The Engine and Slan pair just excellently well to do to some summons. And you do need some skink heroes here to work well with these Kroxigor, because Kroxigor they do not have a champion. They're not elite, so they can't issue themselves command points, and that really hurts them. My hope whenever we get a 3rd edition book, they become elite probably, so that they can issue commands. Or Moonstone Club, make them the champion. That would work too. I have 3 battle line of skinks, just minimum skinks. Had to do that for points. They're not all the best in Thunder Lizard because they will take just all the damage that comes at them. But they do have some usability in that they will help the Kroxigor get that easy +1 to hit if the Kroxigor are wholly within 6 of any of the skinks. So that does help out a lot. We do have 6 units of 3 Kroxigor each, and this tournament, we actually could bring 2 lists and then choose one. Since I only had one game, I'm only going to show this one list. But this one, I chose to not take any Moonhammers. I'm just going MSU and the standard clubs. And I was doing that as one of my option lists in case I came across some elite stuff. My other list had them all grouped together in units of 6 and in bounty hunters. And that would be if I saw just a massive horde army, that's what I'm going to take. But these ones I didn't even take any moon hammers. I kind of wish I had put some moon hammers in these. You'll see why when I faced off in turn 1. But this was kind of my bet of I just want to do, standard damage against whatever enemy I come across. I did put this in 2 battle regiments to get it on 2 drops. This is exactly 2,000 points, 131 wounds, mostly Kroxigor. So this is a lot of fun. It is, well, that made that small. This is a lot of like board control, but also the Kroxigor do decent damage. And I've got, a little bit of shooting. I've got some good spell casting. I've got some summons. So it kind of can play around a little bit. Definitely not like a top tier list, but a lot of fun. So my first opponent, or my only opponent for this tournament, since we had to drop, which was super disappointing, was going to be Raymond. And a very fun player. He is playing Skaven. And we'll take a look at his list here. He is playing Skaven, and it's kind of a mixed arms list a little bit, which I think you're going to see a lot with Skaven since they have a little bit more synergy between all the stuff with their current book. You can kind of takes a little bit of a mixed arms forces with Skaven. So, he has quite a few heroes here. A Grey Seer with Skaven Brew and Death Frenzy. Another Grey Seer with Skitterleap. A Plague Priest with Filth, Rabid. A Plague Priest on Plague Furnace with Artifact Fume. I don't even know what that is. Fuma something. Fuma not going to work here anymore. A Prayer Curse and Rabid there. And then Slink Skittershank. That's maybe a Warcry warband or an Underworlds warband, which was pretty interesting because it was actually a pretty good little hero and a unit that comes with it. I don't know if that's included there in the points here. Oh, Claw Pack is there too. But that little hero guy is quite annoying because it can deep strike in reserve, and then when it fights, it can immediately retreat from combat. So it's very hard to hit this thing and kill it, and it does some decent damage. It has some okay hitting power there. So a nice little piece of tech he's got. He's also got a Warp-like Engineer as his general with Skilled Leader as command trait and Warp Lightning Shield as his spell. He was able to shrug off wounds. I think it's 3 wounds per phase, and then if he takes over that, he takes mortal wounds. But Engineer pairs really well with his Warp Lightning Cannons. He's got 2 Warp Lightning Cannons down there. Those are always kind of scary. He does have 3 units of Clan Rats as his battle line. The 2 Warp Lightning Cannons, which they end up, half the time they end up like destroying themselves. Every time I've played these, I just stay out of range because what do they have? They have 4-inch range, maybe, and then 3-inch move. And so I've got 24-inch range on my shooting and an 8-inch move. So I can outrange it with my shooting. And I took that into consideration on the deployment. Just made sure and kept my 2 big heroes and most of the Kroxigor out of range of those cannons. He's also got 2 units of Plague Sensor Bearers. I kind of underestimated how much damage those things can do. He buffed one of those up and it insta-deleted a unit of Kroxigor. The Plague Sensor Bearers are no joke. Plague Monks, reinforced unit of Plague Monks. And I think that was it. He had quite a few drops there with the extra Expert Conquerors, Bounty Hunters, Command Entourages and stuff. 1975, so he did get a triumph. A lot of wounds in this list, and I kind of, it kind of made me want to go with my Moonhammer version, but he had so many different units, so many heroes. I was kind of worried about him just clogging down my big units of Kroxigor, and I was really worried about the Warp Lightning Cannons just like blowing into one big unit of Kroxigor and just deleting them. So I wanted to split it up into MSU so that I'd have a little bit more board play. So that's why I ended up choosing my list. So good list there. Here's our deployment. We were playing in the presence of idols. So we are deploying into these corners of the board. We've got some terrain. The terrain was pretty evenly spaced around the board. And you can see I I finished deployment before he did. I only had 2 drops. He had quite a few. And I put my skinks here on the front as my screens, even though I kind of want to keep those skinks alive because they do help buff my Kroxigor. But you can see I'm playing back my Stegadon Chief and Engine of the Gods quite a bit further back, just to make sure if he played aggressive with the Warp Lightning Cannons and like put them on the line, that he couldn't reach them in his turn. So I knew if he played aggressive with them, he could reach the Kroxigor, and I'd be okay with that. If he did indeed play more aggressive with them, he played him kind of in the middle of his deployment. You can see him up here in the middle right here, and basically just in range of the skinks at that point. And so really playing for later in the game, see what they could do. He's playing very heavily. He's deploying very heavily to this right side. And come down onto this objective. So I play a little bit heavier towards the middle and towards the top left. So I can kind of control those. I'm just going to send probably 1 unit of Kroxigor and this unit of skinks to grab that objective if I can. But really, I'm going to play these 2 objectives and I'm going to leave as many of those big hordes of rats alone as possible. Until I can choose my combats effectively. So I did put my Slon, I didn't put him in the temple yet because I didn't want him to get shot. If he was in the temple, this corner, I think if he had deployed right on the line, he could have hit the Slon turn 1, and that obviously wouldn't have been good. He did put a null hole back behind me on this bottom left side, and so I did have to use 1 unit of Kroxigor, basically just to screen off that null hole for the entire game. That's so annoying. I would have liked to have used a unit of skinks over there, but the skinks were my screens. They were kind of important. I kind of want to get them into the mix, even though I don't really want them in combat. I'm gonna charge them in with the Kroxigor to get that +1 to hit on the Kroxigor for free. So I really need my skinks up front. So I had to devote 1 unit of Kroxigor just to guard the null. So that's okay. So he does take turn 1, or I let him take turn 1 because I had the choice there, and he takes the battle tactic of destroying basically my front unit of skinks, and so he brings down his hero that can deep strike into this unit. They come in basically right here on this terrain piece, or right behind it. I tried to kind of screen everything off as best I could. I knew he had to come onto terrain, I think, with that, or within range of terrain, so it made it kind of difficult for him to get where he wanted to go with it, but he was able to eventually get into these skinks. He shot both of his Warp Lightning Cannons into those skinks, and Warp Lightning Cannons did what Warp Lightning Cannons do. I think the first one he rolled the power level of 6 and then rolled a couple of 1s. The next one he rolled like a 5 and rolled no 5s or 6s, or maybe there was like 1 or 2. Whatever it wasn't very much. You hate to see that the Warp Lightning Cannons just do almost nothing. I mean, it's okay from my end, I guess, but for the game wise, just rolling bad power levels. You got so much hinging on that one roll. They did, I think, overall maybe like 8 damage to themselves, and so did more damage to themselves than they did to the skinks. He was able to. There wasn't a whole lot else. He was able to kind of move in these clan rats up here to this far left one and kind of spread them out a little bit, move on to these objectives, but not really do any other damage. He only killed that unit of skinks in his turn. He did get it like to the wound, I think, with that extra little hero, and then was able to retreat back out of there. So I think I was able to kill off the little guys that come with that heroes with the Kroxigor or something like that. But he was able to take the board and kill off one unit of skinks, which gave him the battle tactic. Let's see what the next picture was. There's his units there. You can see that plague furnace is surrounded by all his clan rats. He's got his sensor bearers back here in the back of the back, and they'll kind of go around. He does send some of these clan rats through the gnaw hole at some point. Let's see. So, this is already after my next turn. So in my turn, my first turn. I was able to kill off both his Warp Lightning Cannons. They were already injured from his own mortal wounds. I was able to Comet's Call. I was able to do some mortal wounds from the engine. And I was able to shoot with the Stegodon Chief, and was able to take out both Warp Lightning Cannons. So that right there kind of removes a big threat for me. I'm not too worried about all of the rats because I can screen them off enough with Kroxigor to deal with them as they come in. But those Warp Lightning Cannons I was kind of afraid of, and so I was glad they were gone. I did send a unit of Kroxigor up there to deal with the clan rats. He had some more clan rats that had come down here in the middle, I think, and was able to take them out with some Kroxigor. And didn't really push too hard on this side yet. I was kind of waiting to I had to deal with his hero that was down here. I think that's what that was. I dealt with that hero. I was able to hit into him and kill him off. And now we've got kind of a big opening here. If he does take, if he gets the next turn, he can push in kind of hard maybe. But it's so far. We had looked at this, and it was so far to get these clan rats over into my heroes. It would have been very difficult, especially with redeploys and stuff. And so I ended up getting the second turn, and he chose a proving ground, which I think took the middle as a proving ground just to make it hard for me and easy for him to capture in his turn. And I was able to push forward with these Kroxigor and this unit of Kroxigor here on my turn and get into these clan rats. And I think I killed off maybe that whole unit of clan rats with 2 units of Kroxigor, so that was helpful. And basically I was just pushing forward with my Kroxigor, trying to keep him zoned in this corner. And so which I was kind of effectively able to do. I was able to move some of these top Kroxigor just to create a screen, just to keep him off the objectives for an extra turn. And you can do that when you have these MSU units of Kroxigor. They're scary enough to where, you know, they have to go in and fight them and deal with them, but they create enough of a speed bump that you can't just run around them because they will come back and slap you. And so I was just creating lines of Kroxigor to get back to the objectives, and because of our deployment up in these top corners, he was kind of hemmed in his top right side for the rest of the game. And then I was just sending Kroxigor into his lines to deal with the hordes. Now at this point, I had only lost 1 unit of skinks. I think on the bottom of bottom of 2, he was able to send some sensor bearers into 1 unit and kill them off. He sent in a bunch of plague monks into 2 more units, and I think he got them down to 1 Kroxigor left, and then I got to fight back, and we kind of just sat there whittling each other down. And so I was able to hold the board from bottom of 1 into 2. He wasn't able to capture many back on his turn, and then I got turn 3. This may have been the end of that one here. So yeah, you can see my lines I'm pushing some Kroxigor up. I was able to get priority into 3, and he had brought down the plague monks down over there. Let's see what we had here. Yeah, there was his plague monks and sensor bearers coming in. They did pretty good work there. But then in my turn, I was able to send the Stegodon Chief over into his last remaining horde of rats, buffed it up to the moon. You know, put all the fun stuff on it and sent them into that horde, and they were able to finish off that horde. So in the end, I think this is how we ended it here. In the end, the list did quite well. I did have some of the priorities kind of go my way, but I was able to keep them pinned back and deal quite a bit of damage. I think overall, I lost 1 unit of skinks and 1 unit of Kroxigor. We had this unit here was down to 1, and this unit here that I retreated was down to 1 model as well. But overall, they performed admirably. I never engaged the Plague Furnace, and I think he had failed a charge to try to get it in. That kind of helped me keep some models alive. He had a couple heroes left, and he had 1 unit of clan rats back up here that had gone through the null hole, but I was able to screen them out to where they were kind of out of the fight for the turn that they came in. You can see I finally got a summons here. I had double fired the engine every turn, going looking for summons, and I think it was turn 3 before I finally got one. So that was nice. But yeah, Kroxigor did well in this one. Probably not the optimized Skaven list. Probably a little bit of a jack of all trades list. And so I think my army went well into his, and this deployment kind of helped me out too with having him pin back so much into that corner. I was able to just keep him off the board with all the units I had. So Kroxigor, hey, Kroxigor did well this one. I was happy with it, and I might try to run him again. There are a couple of downfalls. There was times where I think let's look back at this right here. So these Kroxigor here are well out of range of any of my my heroes to give them commands, and so that was what hurt me on some of the stuff I wasn't able to do, like all out attack or all out defense. These skinks here played a good role in that they were able to help keep these Kroxigor at +1. I kept maneuvering them around where I needed those skinks and trying to keep them alive as long as possible just to give +1 to hit for those Kroxigor. But I wasn't able to get them all in, especially once you like pile in and do some stuff like that. So that did make it a little bit difficult. They really need to be like elite or something so you can issue commands. I hope that happens in our next book. But overall, I had a lot of fun with it, and Raymond was a great opponent. I think we had a fun game together, and I wish I could have gotten all 3 games in, so I may have to wheel these out again. Definitely makes me want to paint up the other 6, the other 3 units of Kroxigor that I had gotten, and make sure they get all painted up and table ready. All right, guys. List below in the comments, and let me know if I should take this to a tournament and actually play all the games. All right, guys. We'll see y'all later.